So you think there are too many cars on the road? Well, you ain't seen nothing yet. That's this week on Motoring 2005.
TSN's Motoring 2005 is brought to you by Quaker State Motor Oil, oils fine-tuned for different engines, and Midas, Total Car Care. We do that.
It has been called the Klondike, and for automakers, China is indeed the new frontier. And the city of Shanghai is a symbol of the way the whole country is evolving as it strives to become one of the world's most modern countries. In 2002, there were 20 million vehicles in China. It's projected that that figure will grow to 50 million in 2010 and 100 million in 2020 as the people in China and the people of India get off their bicycles and scooters and get behind the wheel. The result? More pollution for this planet to absorb. Well, this week we're in Shanghai to check out the largest environmental vehicle event ever in the world. It is called the Challenge Bibendum, Bibendum being the Michelin man. And Michelin has brought the auto industry's brightest minds here to Shanghai with a vision that mobility must be developed, but with a respect for the environment.
We are at the 2004 edition of Michelin's Challenge Bibendum, and this year for the first time in Asia, we're here in Shanghai at the Formula One circuit. As you know, just hosted the first F1 race here in China a few weeks ago, and now it's hosting the largest environmental vehicle event in the world. I think it's absolutely crucial this is the right time to be in China. You know that 8 of the 10 most polluted cities in the world are in China. And we all know that China's automotive industry is exploding with, I think, 1,000 new vehicles being registered every day in Beijing. So China is at that unbelievable crossroads that says, how can we be more environmentally friendly? And the decision that China makes today and tomorrow is going to impact air and water quality for all of us all over the world.
You are in the business of making tires.
Yes.
But you spend so much time with this. The question, I guess, is why?
Why do we make tires? It's not a goal in itself. You've never seen a tire being used without a vehicle, and vehicles are there to help people move and goods to move. So the goal of Michelin is not just tires, is to help mobility, and Challenge Bibendum is a way to express the fact that Michelin contribution is through its tires, but also through this challenge is to help people move better.
We have over 2,000 people here at the track from 45 different countries. You have 500 journalists, but you also have legislators from the US, from Japan, from China, from European Union. You have journalists, you have all the major manufacturers, not only from Detroit, but also from all the European manufacturers, as well as the Chinese automakers, which I think is really interesting, because China is starting to make their own cars and decide their own future. It's very exciting.
What's good about this is they do the whole range. It's not just fuel cell vehicles, it's not just natural gas or alternative fuel vehicles, it's everything. So people can really look at the range of options that are going on around the world for efficient and clean transportation. You can do all the research in the laboratories, but unless you get the price down and the affordability down to something that can be deployed in a mass sense across the country or across the world, you're really not going to make an impact on environmental and energy challenges. So our goal is not just to develop the technology, but to develop it at a cost and in a way that's really attractive to the consumer so it will get bought and implemented.
I think it's very timely to come to China because the car you're going to be driving at home 30, 40 years from now is going to be very much determined by what goes on here in China. It's the fastest growing car market in the world, and it's also the fastest growing energy consumer. And it's going to put huge pressures on the world energy supply as we get down 10, 20, 30 years from now. And that's going to have a huge effect on what happens in the rest of the world.
They don't have that many vehicles here yet. As I'm told, they have 30 or 40 million vehicles on the road here, and that in the coming years this is going to double, quadruple, so you're going to see that they need to get on top of this very quickly. And from what I understand from the Chinese officials that are here, they seem well aware of this. They seem like they really want to do something about this, but like many governments in the world, they're not quite sure exactly what to do, how to do it, what to do first. So forums like this are a good way for people to get ideas about how to get started and what to do.
Here in Shanghai this week, as you drive out and you see just the masses of cars that are being bought around the world, it's probably even more important for countries like China and India to clean up the environment than it is for North America. I mean, we're going to see lots of increases in vehicles, but not nearly what we're going to see around the world. And eventually petroleum is going to run out, and we need to know what that alternative is, and we need to start working on it now.
Ladies and gentlemen, start your engines. More later on Kenzies Corner.
This week on Test Drive, we go topless as we take a look at the car that BMW said was not going to come. Well, it did, and this is the all-new Cooper Cabriolet, or as we call them in England, the convertible version. Creating a convertible means much more than merely chopping the roof off a vehicle. Being the second strongest part of the car, the roof supplies much of the body's structural integrity. If not done properly, the torsional forces applied to the body means the car and driver suffer alike. Indeed, minus the needed stiffness, the body shakes and shimmies whenever the road deteriorates. This sensation is not only very disconcerting to the driver, it upsets the handling characteristics to the point where the car can become very difficult to drive quickly. When BMW turned the Mini into a convertible, it did a wonderful job. Not only did they strengthen the floor pan and the side sills, they added this oversized M at the back end of the car. Now, this thing does a number of important things. First of all, it ties the back end together, which eliminates a lot of cowl shake over a rough road. It also provides the rollover protection you need in the event the worst happens. But the most important thing, it also allows the rear seats to be folded flat, which when all said and done is just as well, because Shu, who likes to pack too much, won't get very much in the trunk. With McPherson struts up front, a multi-link design in back and roll bars at both ends, the base convertible has a keen feel that belies its drop-top status. Throw the $1,800 sports package and its $195 55R16 run-flat tyres and the $500 sports suspension at it, and things go from very good to simply great. You know, the proof of how well this structure's tied together was found in the pylon test. Not only was this Mini convertible very fast, it remained flatter than gravy on a plate, even as it started to drift sideways. As Jackie Gleason was apt to say, how sweet it really is. The engine that powers the convertible is a smallish 1.6 litre four-banger that pumps out 115 horses and 110 pound-feet of torque. The numbers as they appear on paper make you yawn. However, on-road they yield surprising performance. Pressed to the max, the Cooper trots its way to a ton in 9.2 seconds and can muster enough oomph to pass a slower car without putting you at risk. Part of the reason is the 5-speed manual box. The ratios are such that the launch is enthusiastic and the mid-range spirited. Only at highway speeds does it start to come unravelled, as the engine is forced to churn away at 3,500 RPM at 120 kilometers an hour, which on a long run, well, trust me, it becomes rather monotonous. You know, when you slip behind the wheel of this Mini Cooper, there's a lot to like. The front seats, for instance, form hugging, and they really do keep you planted when you exercise the car. I also like the retro touches, the dials mounted on the steering column and the toggle switches. There are, however, two things to bear in mind. Number one, this is not a four-seater, it is a 2+2. The second thing, as much as those rear rollover hoops do for the body, they do very little for the view through the rear view mirror. When you check it, that's all you see. Stopping power comes from a four-wheel disc brake design with an advanced anti-lock system as standard equipment. Dropping the anchor produces stopping distances that measured 31 metres from 80k, which is commendably short. The ABS also forms part of the traction control and dynamic stability control systems, as well as the tyre pressure monitoring system needed by those run-flat tyres. Along with these active aids, the Mini convertible also comes with dual front and side seat mounted airbags. While this Mini convertible is no substitute for the real thing, it is about as much fun as you can have with your clothes on. True, this base Cooper needs a little more power, but the manner in which it handles more than compensates the driver. Indeed, you can drive the wheels off this thing and it comes back for more. If you do want more power, there's always the Cooper S or the Ultimate, the John Cooper Works Edition. Unfortunately, the latter, well, it's going to cost you more than a few bob.
Our Midas tip of the week concerns keeping tabs on your tire wear. When you start out with a brand new car like this one, or a new set of tires on your older car, you typically start out with a tread depth. That's the difference between the surface of the tread and the bottom of these grooves of somewhere between 10 and 13/32 of an inch on the typical passenger car tire. Now a light truck tire will have a little more, maybe 13 to 16/32 of tread depth. But the important message here is that as these tires wear, your vehicle becomes less and less capable in the rain or snow. Now a vehicle with almost completely worn out tires like this one can have just fine traction on dry pavement, but be an absolute handful to drive in rain or snow. And that's the case with this vehicle. We can see that we only have 2/32 tread depth left on this tire. We've got the tread wear indicators flush with the tread all the way across more than one rib, and we're missing all the minor sipes. Those are these little nicks in the tread right here. The sipes are all completely worn away in this outer rib. So this tire is completely worn away and needs to be replaced before we get into trouble on wet or snowy roads. That's your Midas tip of the week.
What we have here is a world premiere of a concept car we call the 3cc, the Volvo 3cc. And what it is a 3-seat concept car. And what we produced here is an environmental vehicle that also excites people. And because our goal is to get people to want to own an environmental car. The reason it's 3 seats is that what we found from wind tunnel testing, that if you have 2 seats, we could actually put a 3rd seat in the back without jeopardizing the aerodynamic benefits. So the car is actually about 15% more efficient than a 4-seat vehicle aerodynamically. It's a battery electric vehicle that we're also using to explore the latest in the lithium-ion battery technology that's used in laptop batteries. So the batteries are extremely thin, it fits totally under the floor. And that allows us to create a vehicle that we are trying to make future-proof. The drivetrain could be used, be switched to almost any known drivetrain technology, you know, internal combustion, hydrogen combustion, hybrids, or battery electric, whatever. That's what we're trying to create, because it's hard to predict what each region of the world would need in the future. 100 horsepower electric motor, and we have a range of about 200 kilometers on normal city driving. And today we showed that we could keep up with all the best of the production costs on the Shanghai racetrack for the 24 laps that they did to measure its efficiency. It handles like a sports car. It's supposed to be a sports car with a surprise in the back. That's the third seat. And that third seat could be occupied by, comfortably by an adult, because it's a very large seat for a single seat, or it could be accommodate 2 child seats. I'm concerned about the future, and that's also my job, is to try to create a future that my children will be happy living in.
You know, everywhere you go in Shanghai, you see billboards advertising foreign vehicles, which shouldn't come as a surprise. Since 1994, automakers have invested over $12 billion in China to build assembly plants, and more than half of that investment came just last year. And you know, while bicycles and scooters still outnumber cars, vehicle sales were up 70% last year. And get this, over 200,000 Chinese got their driver's license. All right, let's head to the Quaker State Garage and join Bill Gardner.
Brad, pretty soon this whole planet's going to be one giant gridlock of cars. It seems like 200,000 people in my neighborhood just got their licenses. Every time I go up to get on the highway, it's gridlocked, day, night, weekend, holiday, doesn't matter. It's just terrible. And you know what? It just points up the importance of having a really good functioning brake system on your vehicle, because it's no longer clear sailing. You're having to hammer the binders on and stop that vehicle all the time, and sometimes really hard. Now, last week on the show, we talked about the importance of maintaining the brake fluid level and how a low brake fluid level can bring on 1 or more warning lights on your dash. Now, that brake fluid that's up in the master cylinder, where does it go as your brakes wear? The pressure that you're creating in the master cylinder every time you step on the brake pedal is hydraulically applied down here at the wheels to the calipers and wheel cylinders. Now, it comes through this brake flex hose right here into the back of the caliper. I've taken out the 2 bolts that attach the caliper so I can lift it off, and that fluid pressure will hydraulically push this piston out, squeezing the brake pads together against the rotating rotor. That's what stops your car. There's the rotor turning, there's your pads. This is going to squeeze together and stop your car. I've got another caliper here off a different car we've disassembled so we can see where that fluid actually goes as the brake system wears. We've taken out the dust boot and the hydraulic seal out of the bore of the caliper, and now we can see the piston out of that caliper, exactly how it works. Now, with the brake system brand new, thick rotor and full thickness pads, new pads and rotors, that piston's going to be pretty much bottomed in the bore, all the way in like that, with a very small quantity of fluid in behind the piston. Now, as the brake system wears, the pads and rotors wear down, the piston comes out further and further, advancing slowly to make up for the wear that took place at the friction material. And the piston will come out probably about as far as that when the brakes are completely worn out. Now, when that happens, the cavity in behind that piston, the bore of this caliper, fills up with brake fluid that came from the master cylinder. When the brakes are new, there's a large quantity of the total volume of fluid in the car up at the master cylinder and very little down at the wheels. With a worn out brake system, you've got a lot of that fluid capacity stuck down here in the back of the caliper. That's the dirtiest fluid in the system, and when you do a brake job on the car, you want to get rid of that fluid rather than pushing it back up into the master cylinder. A good mechanic will do that, replace it with new fluid, and bleed the brakes. Till next week, I'm Bill Gardner for Motoring 2005.
Now, I'm not probably talking about too many of you motoring guys, but you do know the guy I'm talking about, Mr. Tree Hugger, the environmentalist. He's got his plaid shirt and his jean cut-off shorts, probably wearing those Birkenstock sandals with the socks. It's a nice touch. He's got the bushy beard. He lives in a cabin in a little island someplace in the Queen Charlotte's. He probably drives a '72 Volvo station wagon and heats his little cabin with wood that he chops with his own hatchet. Except when the TV cameras aren't there, in which case he's probably using a chainsaw. Never mind. He thinks he's saving the world, but I got news for him. You can get a brand new Chevy Trailblazer, hardly the poster vehicle for the environmentalist movement, drive it around the world 37 times, and emit fewer pollutants than burning 1 cord of firewood. That comes from the United States Environmental Protection Agency. They know what they're talking about. The fact is, the automobile is the most environmentally friendly machine we have. That Volvo that this guy's driving, no offense against Volvos, it just happened to last a long time, it emits about 100 times as much pollution as a modern car. And Saab, the other Swedish car company, once demonstrated this with a brand new Saab with an exhaust gas analyzer stuck in it. The needles were practically at zero. Thing is as clean as a whistle. Then they took a 1950 Saab with a 2-stroke engine. That's the one where you mix the oil and the gas together. Environmental disaster. The exhaust gas analyzer in that thing, the needles went right to the peg and stayed there. Then they took the exhaust pipe of the old Saab, hooked it into the air intake of the new Saab. Guess what? The needles moved up a little bit while it digested this new menu, and within 20 seconds, they were right back down to zero. In other words, the air coming out of the tailpipe of the new car was cleaner than the air that was going into it. So, Mr. Tree Hugger, you want to save the world? Get yourself a new car and drive around and vacuum up the pollution. I'm getting sick and tired of the mass media blaming our air quality problems on the automobile. It's not the car. You've got construction equipment, you got buses, you got the ferry boat that this guy probably takes to his little island retreat powered by an ugly old diesel engine. The aircraft in the sky, let's not even talk about that. Lay off the car. It's not the automobile's fault. I'm Jim Kenzie.
Well, unfortunately, we're all out of time this week, but we've got a lot more coming your way. So we'll be once again back here in Shanghai on our next program as we check out China's red-hot love affair with the automobile and an auto industry that, yes, hopes to capitalize on this growth, but not at the expense of the environment. That and more as we continue to bring you more stories about cars and the people who drive them.
In big cities, you cannot see a blue sky, you see a gray sky. So everybody said, now we have money and we have everything, but we don't have blue sky, we don't have clean air. We need them.
TSN's Motoring 2005 has been brought to you by Quaker State Motor Oil, oils fine-tuned for different engines, and Midas, Total Car Care. We do that.